out the link in the description for cheap games. If I were to ask you to name some iconic video game characters over the past 30 years, I'm sure we'd all list our top 5 or top 10 a little differently. That being said, I know for a fact that there'd also be plenty of characters we could agree on, and as such I'm going to give you my top 10 all-time gaming characters. Why are they on the list? Well, I guess it's because they're the ones that I'll never forget. Some, if not all of them, define their own genres, and whilst lots of games these days have throwaway characters, these particular characters will always live on in gaming history for me, and most of them were a big part of my childhood. Now of course some of you will disagree with my list and scorch me for leaving your favourite characters out, and that's fine. It's my opinion from my gaming experiences, and so I'm sure there'll be some characters left out. Let's start the proceedings off with Nathan Drake. Quite fitting really, considering Uncharted 4 has just released, and well, it's easily one of the most detailed games I've ever played. It's an incredible technological achievement. A game is only as good as its characters though, and Nathan Drake is a real character that you want to succeed. He's a fairly normal looking guy, quite handsome but not overly so, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. He loves what he's doing and has a lot of fun while doing it. Also, Drake is probably the most unluckiest lucky person that's ever lived in video games. Believe it or not, the character of Nathan Drake was originally based around Johnny Knoxville and Harrison Ford, a blend of both, if you will. He had a bit of a cartoony look, but ended up with a more traditionally handsome appearance. Out of the Uncharted series, Uncharted 2 was my favourite until 4 came along. I do have to wonder though how a Johnny Knoxville Harrison Ford game character would turn out. Someone please make that happen. Okay, so moving swiftly on to none other than Link from the Zelda series. The Zelda games first hit the scene in 1986, and I imagine there isn't that many of you watching this video that were old enough to be playing the games back then. I know I wasn't. I did however play The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past in 1991. It was a fantastic game, top down of course, not like the 3D games we're a little bit more used to these days when we think of Zelda. And Link was actually inspired by his maker Shigeru Miyamoto's childhood memories of exploring forests and cave around his home of Kyoto. Young Link is around 9 years old. That makes him a pretty young hero, a young hero that's now one of the most popular gaming characters who's sold over 50 million copies. I wasn't really thinking about saving a princess at that age, but good going for him. For me though, the Zelda game I played the most and have the fondest memories of is Zelda Ocarina of Time on Nintendo 64. I remember opening the box on Christmas morning and not putting the game down until dinner was served, starting out as young Link and then using the Master Sword to time travel to serious mode older Link was just so goddamn cool. My first playthrough of the game was around 60 hours, and there's not many other single player games I can put that much time into nowadays. Next up, Marcus Phoenix. Can you believe that Gears of War first came out 10 years ago in 2006? That's crazy, and Gears of War 4 is releasing later this year. Marcus is a decorated war hero who made a rash decision that left him imprisoned and then became humanity's last hope against the Locust Horde. Bit of a roller coaster then. He was the leader of Delta Squad, and as he was the protagonist in Gears of War 1, 2 and 3, he became very much a standout character of the old generation. Big, heavy and a mean killing machine, joined by his friends Coltrane, Dom and Baird. Gears of War was also the franchise that pushed along the Xbox 360, so Marcus Phoenix had a big role to play there. A cheeky fact you probably already know about, but here goes anyways. Marcus Phoenix is voiced by John DiMaggio, who was the voice actor of Bender in the Futurama TV show.
Hey, bite my shiny metal ass!
Okay, next, Solid Snake. If you've got Snake in your name, you're probably pretty badass, or maybe a bit sneaky, or a bit of both. Solid Snake is indeed both of those things. He first appeared in Metal Gear way back in 1987. I didn't actually play that one. My first experience of Solid Snake was in Metal Gear Solid on the original PlayStation, and that is one of my all-time favourite games. It just had the perfect blend of stealth action, the guns, the characters, the story, Psycho Mantis reading your memory card and moving your controller across the floor. It was so good and something new in the gaming space. And as gamers, we've watched Solid Snake grow over the years, from an amateur to accomplished spy to pretty old in MGS4 thanks to an accelerated aging coded into his genes. It's fairly rare that you actually see a character age through the years in a gaming series, but you definitely feel the differences in the character over the years. He can do it all, including remaining unnoticed in a cardboard box despite moving across the room. Impressive skills indeed. The next character on the list is quite fitting considering the recently revealed Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare remaster. It's of course Captain Price. Now this one is a bit different to the rest in the list because although he's playable during the game at one point, he isn't technically the main character that you play as. When you play as Captain Price, it's in some flashback missions, but you play as a different protagonist for the rest of the game. That just shows how memorable Captain Price really is. He's actually based upon a real British SAS soldier called John McLeese. Price is an old school hard as nails soldier. In fact, when you first encounter him in the game, he's in a Russian gulag. He just has a presence about him and a character that you warm to as a player and you really cared about. Plus, any man that can survive a Russian gulag and walk out as though nothing happened surely deserves a mention. Halfway there, Lara Croft. Teenage boys and girls all over the world will know for sure when Lara Croft first hit the gaming scene way back in 1996. Triangular boobs, hot pants, I'm sure you'll remember. Since that day, Lara Croft has become a very well-known character in both games and movies after having a number of movies based off the game with Angelina Jolie, and yes, there is another reboot in the making starring Alicia Vikander. Lara Croft was one of the first mainstream female lead characters in a video game, and despite being somewhat controversial because of her obvious sex appeal, she was always felt to empower female gamers and inspire cosplay around the globe. And you could argue that games like Uncharted are only here because of the groundwork of games like Tomb Raider. The two new games that rebooted the series recently were excellent and portrayed a more realistic human depiction of Lara Croft that was excellently written and hard as nails. Gotta go fast. Imagine you're a kid, which shouldn't be too difficult considering we all were at one point, and you see a video game with a bright blue hedgehog who can run at mega speed and also has a cheeky attitude. You would go nuts for that, and you probably did. Not only that, but the original games he's in are arguably the most popular and addictive platforming games ever made, certainly of their time. He even burst out of 2D and made his way into 3D games. He certainly branched out. And when you were a kid playing Sonic, it was just such a simple concept, but you would spend hours and hours on the Mega Drive because of it. Collecting rings, singing along to the tunes in cool environments. The Labyrinth, for example, that one was a classic. And of course, teaching Dr. Robotnik a lesson. That guy definitely needed to be knocked down a peg or two. Okay, so what character is part of one of the other best platform games ever? Also turned 3D and likes to have parties with his friends. He can fix your plumbing too. Oh, and he was made by the same gentleman that made Link. It's Mario, of course. Wahoo. Or should I say Jumpman, because that's what his original name was. I am glad they eventually went with Mario though. Unlike Sonic, Mario didn't start in a game of his own name though. Mario actually first appeared in Donkey Kong back in 1981, before I and probably many of you were even born. This Italian plumber has been around the block a few times. I bet he has some good stories to tell. Now, my first experience of Mario was on the Game Boy with Super Mario Land. I remember staring for ages at the box art as a kid, and the game itself was just so damn addictive. You don't want to know the amount of pocket money I spent on spare batteries, but personally, my greatest Mario experience came with Nintendo 64 and Super Mario 64. Pulling his face around in the title screen was so special, and from memory, that was one of the first games I actually cared about 100%ing. The gameplay, the music, the sound effects, it was just so good. Mario set the tone for platforming games and just gaming characters in general. He doesn't talk much in the games, but his character shines through in his animations, sound effects and catchphrases. Family friendly, kids loved him, and the games were always brilliant fun. What more could you want? Next, a character dear to my heart, Master Chief John 117. Now this guy doesn't have the long history that say Sonic and Mario have, but he was also introduced to a different generation of gamers, the protagonist of the Halo franchise. Sonic and Mario were released at a time when 2D games were all you could expect, but Master Chief came at a time when 3D FPS games were everywhere. But what set him apart was how good the game was and how cool the main character turned out to be. Chief is mysterious, his armour looks incredible, his voice is amazing, and whilst he doesn't talk that much either, when he says something, you listen, and you know that whatever he's doing it for the right reasons. You will personally vouch for Chief and you want to see him win no matter what the odds are. Halo was the flagship game for Microsoft's Xbox console, and 5 games later, the Halo franchise is just as big as it ever was. For me though, Master Chief is iconic because of how much I played and loved the Halo series. Growing up, I played Halo so much on the Xbox and 360, and because of that, Master Chief will always have a place in my heart. And of course to the last one, and I'm pretty sure this will come as no surprise to a lot of you, Gordon Freeman. You know, the dude with a degree in physics who's also surprisingly handy with a crowbar and adept at firing all sorts of weaponry, including alien weaponry. Gordon Freeman has become an internet icon, synonymous with one of the best FPS games to ever be released and a game which set the tone for so many other games to come. Recently, I did a video talking about how good Half-Life was, so I won't go into too much detail on that. We all know how good it was, but even today, Gordon Freeman is one of the most well-known gaming characters around. The entire internet has been waiting and waiting, and will still be waiting for years to come, probably for Half-Life 3. Is it in development? Will it ever be released? If it does come out, can it possibly live up to the hype, and will Mr. Freeman wake up, smell the ashes and finally speak? All of these questions and no answers. Volvo, please. So there we have it, those are my top 10 iconic video game characters, and like I said, these are just my opinions based on my personal gaming experiences, the 10 characters in video games most dear to my heart. There are so many other amazing characters from video games over the years that I haven't even touched on too. What about Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Samus, Crash Bandicoot and all of the others I haven't really mentioned? There are a number that you could choose from, and I'm interested to see what your top 10 characters would be. Let me know down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, that would be ace. If you didn't, a thumbs down, and I'll see you in the next one.